Hi, I'm Jim Steele. I'm a business speaker, and I'm going to give a speaker's perspective on what it's like delivering in this new digital environment we find ourselves in. I was reading a LinkedIn post by a friend recently from London Business School, and it started with the line, "I've just been disrupted. Overnight, I've become Blockbuster, Kodak, and the diesel engine." And it sounded uncomfortably familiar. You know, for many of us, the world has tilted, and we've had to flex, regroup. Popular word right now is pivot. So I tooled up with Adobe Connect, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, to name a few. I was all set, ready to go, or so I thought. I mean, how hard could it be, right? Talking to a screen as opposed to a room full of actual people and the pressure of camera, lights, action. Well, let's just say that the learning curve has been surprisingly steep. Pivot doesn't even come close. So in the old world, right, as a speaker, you would utilize the group dynamic. You'd factor it in. As an example, studies would suggest that people rarely actually laugh out loud when they're on their own. And yet, if 25 out of 100 people laugh at an audience, at a conference, the energy of the room shifts, right? People laugh because people are laughing. The behavioral patterns change with a group. And this is perhaps the biggest challenge, which hit me like a truck, the total lack of moment-to-moment feedback. Presentation mode switched on, can't see anyone. The mute all's activated, can't hear anyone. It was like presenting into a vacuum. How am I doing? Did my point land? Are they with me? How's the energy in the room? Is there anyone even still in the room, right? It created a really unusual pressure. As a speaker, pressure kind of goes with the territory. You have to deliver. But not knowing where you are, whether you're on track or off track with the room, it takes away the option to adjust your approach. Equally important, but less obvious, is that there was also pressure on the audience. A room full of people creates a natural tension. Unfamiliar surroundings, the group of people that, some you don't even know that well. The fight or flight response triggers amber alerts just in case. What does today have in store for me? Who's the speaker? What are they going to do? Will it involve me? It was the dynamic tension that if the speaker appreciated it and used it respectfully, it would help them build a rapport, and gain trust from the group. And that trust would then allow the speaker to challenge the room, take them outside their comfort zones, safely, but with the positive intention of leaving the delegates, stronger, smarter, or better for having had the experience. And if you paid attention, if you noticed the audience reaction, their facial expressions, whether their shoulders have dropped a bit or not, you knew where you stood, and how far you could go. But now the rules of the game have changed, right? Now as someone logs in from their attic, at any point they can choose to switch off their mic, their camera, right? They can virtually leave the room. Right? In fact, they decide when it's time for a coffee break. And if you're the speaker with hundreds of people dialed in, there's a good chance you won't even know. So how do we take a speech to a remote platform? And as lockdown eases, to what I suspect will be an amalgamation of small live audiences, socially distanced, remote webinars, remote viewers tuned in with a visual link, others tuned in perhaps digitally. In fact, before I even answer the question, I have to say, even with 25 years or more speaking to groups large and small, I've only had 6 weeks doing this, where there's nobody even in the room, right? So I come at this as someone who's, excited by the challenge to change, whilst at the same time still slightly dazed and confused by what that actually means. That said, I am confident that people are people. And if you as a speaker could engage an audience in the literal room, you can do so in a virtual one, right? Yes, there'll be some adjustments. So it seems to me that there are 3 areas of delivery where the speaker can add more value and enhance the remote experience. As the speaker, it used to be that the majority of the action happened at the live event, right? To my knowledge, pre-communication was used for informing delegates of upcoming agendas, allocating, table groups, or deciding what breakout they're going to attend. Certainly a minimal contribution from the speaker. And then after the event, aside from appearing on the feedback form, about the same amount of involvement, right? Not much. Now, if the speaker's going to really add value, right, and earn their right at the table, I believe we've got to provide more of a blended learning pathway that connects, 3 touch points, before, during, and after the event. Specifically, what can we do? Well, pre-event, we've got to excite delegates. During the event, we've got to engage them. And then post-event, we have to embed the learning. In the old world, it would have seemed odd, right, to be contacted by the guest speaker in the lead up to an event. Now, I feel it's not only relevant, it's also congruent, seen as the mode of communication, whether pre, during, or post, it's pretty much the same. It's delivered to the delegate on a screen whilst they're sat at their desk. And as a result, I really feel that, as speakers, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to support each of those 3 stages in order to have a more sustainable impact. So, excite. We can start exciting delegates by beginning the learning process way earlier, before the event. And now I've been providing short promo videos to introduce myself, the content, proposed benefits, right? Provocative little sound bites to whet the appetite, provoke them to consider their opinions and views and prime them, so that when they arrive in the event, they're engaged, they're ready for discussions, ready to kind of test some ideas, test some observations on the day. So engage. In the past, we could generate a successful outcome by creating a tremendous amount of energy in the room, surprising people with some insightful messages, put in a few energizing activities and the odd amusing anecdote. Now, I really believe that we should give people the content beforehand, like I say, and then surprise them with the process of how we explore it on the day. It's as if we need to build some of that trust that I mentioned, earlier on in the lead up, by both reassuring them that, yes, it's another Zoom session potentially, but it's not any old session. It's something to look forward to specifically. And also the way in which we explore ideas has to change. We now have a greater opportunity to involve everyone in the room. Back in the day, the extroverts were always happy to jump in with both feet, time for an energizer, or volunteer to help make that, demonstrate a point. The introverts, sometimes not quite their style. But now, if you've participated in the build-up and generated some positive expectation and anticipation, there's going to be 100 faces on 100 screens, all personality types feeling relaxed and ready to join in. And maybe the biggest opportunity to add value lies in the 3rd phase, embed. If we formed a relationship with delegates, both in the lead up to and of course on the day, it would seem natural to provide something that can support them long after the mood in the room has passed. And I don't think that we as speakers, let's be specific, I don't think I did a good enough job, helping delegates embed the learning post-event. Whereas now, I'm providing short little links, little videos, review videos from the sessions, recommended reading lists, supporting articles, practical toolkits for how to apply the key messages and embed the learning, back in the workplace or back at home. So there is no doubt, it's a whole new world for both the speaker and the delegates. As I said at the start, we've been disrupted. It's a time to adapt and flex, pivot, and then some. So I'll finish with a phrase that was given to me many years ago, which without doubt has had the biggest impact on my development as a speaker. In particular, it's helped me tremendously when faced with difficult situations or difficult audiences. I'd repeat it to myself like a mantra while thinking about my next move. And it went like this: there are no difficult audiences, just inflexible speakers. That's it. My COVID-19 updated version reads, there are no difficult audiences or communication platforms, just inflexible speakers. I'm certainly looking forward to the ride, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week at the live panel discussion. See you there.